Your linoleum carver has little bits in the bottom of it. Sometimes, if they're a Speedball brand, you will have a number on the back. If they don't have a number, that's okay. You can figure out which is the skinniest bit and which is the biggest bit. So this one has a very, very tiny little V on the end, and that's for carving out little details or smaller areas. This is a number 3, so it's probably it opens up kind of midway in the V shape. This is a number 2. The V shape is a little more closed in this one. You can see it like that. This is a number 5, which is the most open one that you have, and this will scoop out the most area. This is your flat blade that can start shaving off any extra residual little fragments that you need to go away. So you're not necessarily going to use this until the very end. Okay, how do I put these things in? The reason why it uncaps like this is you can store all the other bits you're not using in there. So handy. So I want to start out outlining around the lines. So in order to do that, I need the number 1 bit. Here's my number 1, very tiny. So when you unscrew where it connects, this little piece here, you'll see as you open it up, it has this little piece that wiggles around. There's a little piece right in there. If I were to shake it, I would see it wiggling. It's kind of like, it looks like this on the inside. There's this ball in the middle, and then it has a little crown on top that's attached to the ball. These parts don't move. And then there's a little bit right here that moves back and forth. It's this little piece, this little smile, that kind of moves up and down, and it lets you slide the bit in between in that little slot. And this little in-between space right here, that's where you're going to slide the bit in. Not the bit that you're going to use to carve, the side that you're going to carve. That's not what goes in. It's this other side. That's the same on every single bit. They have the connector end. The connector end usually has some writing on it. Okay, it says Speedball. What I'm going to do is put the bit into this little space. When this wiggles down, because I opened it up, I'm going to push that in. I'm going to open it up enough so that it goes in, and it will fit nice and tight for me, and then I can screw it tight. Okay, so it fits. This bit will fit into this little space between the smile that wiggles around and the round nose, let's just call it. Okay, you do not want to unscrew this all the way out because it'll come apart on you, but screw it out enough that you can slip the bit in. So I'm going to carve to the right of my outline for the ball, and to the left, and I will maintain that little line. If I have a thin line, I don't want to ruin it, so I want to really make sure nothing happens to that line. So I'll go with the number 1 bit carefully. You don't have to dig super down, super like deep. Okay, you're basically, and this is the best way to hold the carving tool, like this. You have more control over your hand when it's like this. Sometimes you might end up doing that just to get into a spot that you need, but this doesn't really help you out for carving. So get used to holding it like this. It's kind of weird at first, but you'll get used to it so that you can move your hand like this. You can move your hand in your wrist, or you can move the block as you go. So I can see how I'm turning the block? That's also how you can maneuver it. There's an eyebrow up there, so I'm going to avoid the eyebrow shape. You have to be super careful of your thin little lines. there's the arm. I'm going to turn and go around the arm. When I get to the little fingers up there, I'll shift my block this way, and I'll sort of gently kind of poke in to these spaces. I can peel away, kind of peel off the rubber as I go. You just have to be careful not to peel off too much because you might end up losing a finger or something in this. So take your time and don't rush it. You don't have to dig super deep. When you print it out later, you will see if you have to carve anything else out again. So I'm still going around the arm here. Okay. Now what I want to do is I want to go on the inside of the arm because the legs have been colored in, but the arms aren't colored in. So I have to take out that white space. At the same time, I want to avoid going too close to what the line that I just carved, because then I won't make the line happen. I'm making this line happen right here by carving out to the right of it and to the left of it. I'm just sort of peel that up as I go. I gotta be careful for the fingers in here that I don't go too far. This is a super soft block, so be gentle with it. Because if you go over a line and you cut off the wrong spot, you can't put it back. So now I've avoided to the right and to the left of this line, this outline. And now I can take a bigger bit, because this is a very, very, very thin bit, a very tiny bit. So I would just need to change that up to a number 2 so it'll carve out more for me. If your bits come apart and you're like, oh gosh, how do I put this back together? That's okay. Basically, you have a piece that looks like this, and a piece that looks like that. Put them on top of each other so they form a full circle. Stick it back in the top like that. Now I would get a bigger bit to do the rest. Now that I went around the outside of it with a number 2, I'd use a number 5 and get rid of this. Okay. That means for this baseball design, I have to carve around these little black lines right here that are the stitches in the ball, because I don't want those to go away. Those need to stay there. So I need to go to the right of them and the left of them. And I want to make sure I don't carve them out by accident. There, now the stitches have been carved in. Now when I get into teeny tiny details like the laces are black. And it's going to be kind of hard to get in there and really, or the laces also could be white, so I might just carve that away. I might make the shoes black, and the laces white. So all I would need to do would be to carve around. I would carve around the shoes, and I would carve around the little cleats here. So I carve around all of that, carve that out, and then I would take the number 1 and carve out the laces, and so the laces would be white. Whatever you carve out is going to be white. Just keep that in mind as you're going along. And if you have a question of like, oh my gosh, how do I do this? You just have to slow down and think it out. Okay, you gotta think it out. Now that's one design. Here's another one here. It might be a good idea to take a look at. If I were to carve out just the lines of the wings here on the bee, it would be easier for sure, but the lines would be white and inside the wing would be dark. Let's say it would be black. Whatever you carve out is going to be white. I'm going to do this bee in 2 different sides. Everything I carve out that's white on this side will be different than this side, and you'll see the difference when I print and understand it a little bit more. So if I carve out the body here, if I carve out what's black on the left, and then on the right I carve out what's not black, you'll see the difference. in the left side, I carved out everything that was black. On the right side, I'm going to carve out everything that's not black, so everything that's white. Which will take longer, but it will look more like my original drawing. I don't want to dig too far deep into the block because I can use the other side of the block. And if I dig too deep, then I can't use the other side of the block. So I'm not going to dig deep down like this. I'm going and kind of shaving off the surface. That's why holding my hand like this is better than this, because you're digging too deep this way. You're not digging deep this way. Now I'm trying to dig out this space right here. I need to protect this line right here, so I can't just start digging this way because I'm going to end up ruining that line. So before I did that, I should have carved to the left of that line so that I didn't jeopardize its safety. I'm going to get a bigger bit so that I can trim out everything else because the number 2 is too skinny to do that. This knife blade one that you're not going to use until later is used for the background. If I wanted to just sort of shave off any residual little bumps, I can do that, or the edge. It's very handy to use at the edge so I don't scoop too much out. Okay, I'm done and ready to print.